space at the Library of Congress. Before I get into the introduction, I've got to say, I've always been amazed at what is in this building and what the people in this building are capable of doing. You know that before the setup of this event, just I think an hour ago, there was a blood drive in this room, in this very room. So we got all of those folks out, thank goodness. And with that, we can get on to the meat and the bones of our particular conference. Welcome to the Library of Congress and to our conference on the George W. Bush presidency, hosted by the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies at Grand Valley State University and by George Mason University. And I'm Gleaves Whitney, your host this evening, and I'm director of the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies. Now, if you visit the West Wing, or the old executive office building these days, you see a lot of boxes. The staff are packing up 8 years of work. Moving day is fast approaching for more than 1,000 people in the Bush administration. And there's no denying that it's been rough going over the past few years, and especially the past few months. But Winston Churchill, who knew something about leaving office with low approval ratings, could offer two good pieces of advice for the Bush administration. First, if you're going through hell, by all means, don't stop, don't slow down, keep going to get through it. And second, don't worry one bit about how posterity will judge you, because as Churchill himself so memorably put it, history will be good to me because I intend to write it. Now, before George W. Bush writes his memoirs, and word is that the first book he plans to write will be a book about his toughest decisions over the past 8 years. It's important to see what lessons citizens and public servants can learn from our 43rd president. And that's why Mark Roselle and I have teamed up. I believe this is our 4th time in presenting a conference. Mark, where are you?
Right here.
Yes, please acknowledge Mark Roselle. Mark and I have partnered now for many years. He's at George Mason University, and we're teaming up to offer what we hope will be a very insightful program. And we want to start off with a scholar of the classics. You know, when we first started talking about this program, we knew that we'd have a lot of real smart political scientists and historians who'd be able to talk to us about, from a very current perspective, the importance and significance of the Bush administration for succeeding generations and presidencies to study. But I thought we could take a real long view and go all the way back to the classics to gain wisdom, gain perspective about the Bush administration. Rufus Fears is our speaker this evening, and he teaches the classics at the University of Oklahoma, and by my count, he has received some 50 teaching awards from OU and from organizations around the nation. For a more complete biography, I'd refer you to our website, www.allpresidents.org. But let me say this about Professor Fears before I bring him up. He's the David Ross Boyd Professor of Classics at the University of Oklahoma, where he holds the Blankenship Chair in the History of Liberty. He received his Ph.D. from Harvard as an internationally distinguished scholar and author of numerous studies in Greek and Roman history, the history of freedom, and the lessons of history for our own day. He has been a Danforth Fellow, a Woodrow Wilson Fellow, a Harvard Prize Fellow, a Fellow of the American Academy in Rome, a Guggenheim Fellow, and twice a Fellow of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany. Professor Fears is very active in speaking to broader audiences. This is one of the things that made him very attractive to us at the Hauenstein Center. His comments on the lessons of history for today have appeared on television and in newspapers across the United States. He is a regular guest on national talk radio programs, and each year he leads study groups around the United States and around Europe, and we're so delighted that his travels have brought him to Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, Rufus Fears.
Can you hear me all right? Good. Good. Well, I'm just delighted you would come out tonight. I deeply appreciate this, and very honored to be part of the Hauenstein Center. It is the most remarkable intellectual scholarly center I've seen in operation in many years. It simply does a superb job intellectually as well as in the organization of its conferences. But the theme tonight is the legacy of President Bush. Now, I'll be open with you. I am a great admirer of President Bush, and I have been a strong supporter of President Bush. And I ponder what history will learn from President Bush. And it's appropriate that we start here in the Library of Congress and with the inscription over the front from James Madison about the importance of knowledge. Because the founders of our country were a uniquely successful galaxy of statesmen. In fact, it is a question why an infant republic in a new world could bring forth a galaxy of statesmen unsurpassed in all of history. And they did this by committee. They brought forth the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. All of these were brought forth in a time when the United States was 13 struggling republics along the eastern seaboard, and when technology was the same as it was in the days of Julius Caesar. If Washington wanted to go somewhere, did he go to Dulles Airport and fly? It took Thomas Jefferson 10 days to come from Monticello to Philadelphia. In fact, Julius Caesar could have done it more quickly because Roman roads were much better. Technology. You're out there right now text messaging somebody. But if Washington wanted to communicate, he did it the same way Caesar did. He wrote it out by hand, and it was carried by horse or by messenger, by sail power. And yet that same Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, secures for us every day our freedom. That is an extraordinary achievement. And there's an answer why the founders were so successful. They thought historically. Thinking historically shaped their political views, and it shaped their moral character. Thinking historically. Historical thought is far more important than historical knowledge. Historical knowledge is dates and names and what's good for trivial pursuit. Thinking historically, historical thought, is to use the lessons of the past to make decisions in the present and to plan for the future. And the founders thought historically. We are an ahistorical society. Oh, there are lots of huge biographies of presidents. There's a history channel. But we do not think historically. In fact, we believe that our technology, our science, has placed us above the lessons of history. That we are immune to the laws of history. And that is a dangerous delusion. I believe that President Bush, his greatest legacy to history will be his commitment to freedom. He is deeply committed to the advancement of freedom, democratic freedom throughout the world. And his 2 terms have been devoted to the advancement of freedom throughout the world. There has never been a president so devoted to the advancement of freedom throughout the world, with the possible exception of Woodrow Wilson. And President Bush's inaugural address, his second inaugural address, is one of the most profound and significant inaugural addresses in our country's history. There he proclaims that freedom is a universal value, that it is the permanent hope of the human race, the longing of the human race. He declares that it will be our policy to advance democratic freedom to every nation and to every culture in the world. He proclaims that freedom is the sweep of history, that it is the great movement of history towards freedom for all. And his commitment is to advance that democratic freedom. In the same way, President Wilson led us into World War I to make the world safe for democracy. It is not a coincidence that both the presidency of George Bush and that of Woodrow Wilson ended in tragic failure.